So we're starting the beginning of the whole roll of concerts and this wonderful new work you've brought with you, Swing Symphony, and it's a very extraordinary title, Swing Symphony. There are worlds together in there. And I wondered if you could simply tell us about this piece and what you meant to say and what it's about.
Well, the Swing Symphony, it brings together the concept of a symphony, which is a song for orchestra. In this case, it's two orchestras. And swing in jazz terms means to come together. And it's two orchestras coming together and swinging. The swing feeling it combines opposites in so many ways. First, the highest frequency in the band, which is a cymbal, has to play on every beat with the lowest frequency, which is the bass. The feeling of two, 1, 2, 1, 2 comes together with the feeling of three. Ding, 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So, and even when you play fast, if you're going the hard thing about jazz phrasing is to phrase the 3 and the 2 at once. And in terms of the work, Simon and I talked for many years about doing a piece. So maybe 15 years, the first time we talked, a long time I would see him, he would come to concerts. And of course, I've seen the Philharmonic many times. I played here, not just with the Philharmonic, but in this great hall. So the thought was something that would bring us together and that would celebrate all of the great achievements of jazz music in the 20th century from the perspective of a jazz musician, starting with ragtime and going through the 1920s. Every style of our music, we believe, is present and modern. It is something that we can share and we can play together.
And there's something special that happens in the last movement too. You were telling the orchestra about the bringing it together and what that is. If you could say something about that.
Well, in the last movement is more just the last movement is our style that we play today. And it features clapping and it features a groove that we all play together, and it has a long melody and it has a space for everyone to play the woodwinds, play kind of like sounds of nature, and it brings together many different feelings. And then it goes into the church groove, because the centerpiece of a lot of Afro-American music is church music, the sanctified rhythm. And the sanctified rhythm is also a combination of 3 and 2. It's a 6/8 or 12/8 rhythm. Ding, 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 pop, 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 pop. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that, and then it breaks down into something that is kind of, the way I conceive of it is at the end of your life and you reflect on everything. It's a wistful type of feeling that is not sad and it's not happy. It's like a contented, a feeling of contentment and a celebratory, a quiet celebration. And that's why at the end I have us go, it's like that last breath that you take for me, like, okay, we did this and now we had a good time. Yeah. Because that's what we conclude in jazz. It's an optimistic music, even through the blues. No matter how tragic things are, no matter how bad something has been, we can always find some joy and some happiness. And that joy that we find, even in the face of great adversity, that joy, that is the thing that makes life worth living. And that's what we hold to, and that's what makes our interactions with each other so powerful. And that's what makes so many things possible.
Well, you had the kids in the public, and everyone was already dancing too, listening to it. So, Simon, when you're in with these different forces, you've got jazz players, classical players, and it's a whole meeting of mind and spirit. How do you feel about bringing them all together? What do you think?
It's a lot of great musicians in one room, and a lot of very different great musicians. But what's interesting is seeing how everybody interacts with each other. I mean, this was very clear, of course. Look, as Wynton says, we've been talking for years about this piece. All I can remember is that I had black hair when we started. And then I looked and I saw just a few of these little white things just starting there. I thought we'd really better get on with this. But the orchestra came here before in Claudio's time. And I remember seeing them just after, and the players being just kind of on fire with it. They said, look, these are the best musicians in the world. We have to find a way to do something together. Because one of the nice things about our musicians like yours is everybody wants to learn something. He was on stage this morning with the percussion section, doing a sectional, and with Ali, his simply unbelievable kit drummer, and just everybody learning everything. Like, how do you do this? What do you want here? What sound do you want? it's the idea of all these musics coming together. There was actually a wonderful moment when he talked to the orchestra where he said, well, I thought in this piece I'd write something that wasn't really particularly technically difficult, that all of the string players' jaws dropped, because actually technically it's one of the most difficult things we have ever seen. For us it's a matter of concept as well, and it's trusting what you have to do. It's trusting. So what's very interesting for us is the idea of what Wynton would call freedom is actually a freedom with an incredibly tight discipline. Because we move around this orchestra, sometimes a little bit like a big invertebrate animal, whereas actually their music, if it moves around, it's within this strict parameter of the beat. And even when Wynton says play rubato in the score, actually it's all in one tempo, it's just a bit slower. And so we have to find a way to be free and to make our shapes within that kind of discipline. So although, you would say your music is very free in a way, though, rhythmic pattern is so much more disciplined. And we've all learnt a lot, and people have come very, very fast to it. But I mean, the greatest thing for me has been seeing simply the pleasure of everybody looking, listening, and take it. And it'll affect the way we play everything, and that's what music's all about. And you've written us an extraordinary piece, and from my heart, I thank you so deeply.
Thank you.
So, just you were also saying yesterday that there was one point you were saying there was a call and response or a communication between cellos and saxophone relating to Coleman Hawkins, and there's quite a bit of call and response going on, not only between your orchestra but also between orchestra and jazz band. Were you surprised, this is actually a question to Simon, were you surprised or shocked even to see how much they were brought together, or just simply?
No, look, when we talked, we'd always talked about not doing a jazz arrangement.
That's right.
We always say that, how can we do that? Is it possible to do this? And it's tough, it's difficult to do. One of the other things is actually last year when it was really kind of on the cusp of starting, we had very, very nice sushi, and I told them a lot about the orchestra, who does what. And I said at one point, we have the most astonishing double bass section in the world. These guys can really play. They never get to play a tune. Please write a tune for them. And my God, did he write them a tune. And they're very happy people, but they really had to practice.
That's an amazing moment.
But so the idea was to do not the normal thing where you get the jazz band playing and then the orchestra doing something stiff in between or long notes. So something where we are really two orchestras, like a concerto for two orchestras, a conversation.
This question of freedom and rules, Wynton, that's also a life question. And I know that, in your interest in education, but also in learning and also in your approach to music, the idea of, how to respect rules, how to respect one another, how does that sort of come into music?
Well, the rule is the freedom. If everybody likes football, if you take all of the rules of football away, if you can grab the ball with your hand, if you can run with it, if you don't have to follow the field, if you can go throw it in a goal, if you can knock players down, are you going to have fun doing that? The fun is that you can execute all these things inside of this concept. It's like you go to the circus and someone is on the trapeze, or someone does an unbelievable form. Gives us a context, and it could be any form. And once we do away with form, we can still come up with interesting things, but the achievement is different. And mastery of form is something that has plagued composers, musicians, writers, painters. You can study anyone you want. The concept of form is foremost on their mind, because the form is what you push against. We have the physical limitations of our bodies. We go to see the Olympics, we see, can you believe somebody ran in this time? Can you see somebody could do this with a bow and arrow? And the same thing is true. Like the fantastic thing about working with the orchestra is seeing Simon negotiate when our rhythm section plays a third above the time, or not most of the time. When we play with classical orchestras, if they do that, it'll never come out right. He is always right. He's always on it. So just the technical skill. the knowledge of music, the understanding of the harmonic progressions. These are things that make music exciting and fun. And it's like a kind of look more, no hands kind of thing that the jazz musicians always loved. Like they would always pretend like they had not practiced. Somebody like Art Tatum is sitting down playing all the most unbelievable. Hey, do you know T for two? I don't know. Can you sing a little bit of it? I might, I got it. And the traditions of jazz and classical music, Coleman Hawkins, I picked him because he played cello and he loved classical music. But at that time in America, Afro-American musician could not play in symphony orchestras. He couldn't play symphonic music. So Coleman Hawkins was, we call him the father of the saxophone in jazz. And so I wrote this movement on Body and Soul, which was a song that he made into a hit. And actually all of the sections of this piece are based on harmonic progressions of other songs, because that is also a way of jazz musicians paying a respect to other forms, and our way of doing our theme and variation and giving you a sense of what it is that we are doing. It started with the jazz musicians in the early days playing a hymn or some song that everyone knew. Maybe they would play do do dee do dee da, do dee do dee da. Then when they start playing, they say do dee hum, boo dee do. They put that extra home do we do. I remember the first time I played in a parade. I was 8 years old or something, and I was playing with a lot of older musicians. And I wasn't so much into that style of music. I wasn't into it at all. But I remember the first note they hit, it went. So I was waiting for them to hit a note, like boom. And when they hit that first note, I started to look around like, was that the first note? And it's more of a kind of the personal expression we put in the context of the time. So to get back to the question of freedom and structure, our music is dance music, and we play against time. It comes from African music. And much of African music, they play in 4 and 3 at one time. So if they're going... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. It comes. So we have to have that. That gives us that's how you know whether people can play in time or not.
It's fascinating.
But it's just so interesting when Wynton talks about time, of course, and when we talk about time means, okay, now we wait a bit. Time means for him, you absolutely do not wait a bit, because time is time. And so that's how far the worlds have to come to meet each other. And once you get into that same pot, then you can really cook something.
Right, it's like Baroque music.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you look at Bach's music, it's we're talking today about ragtime. Ragtime music, Irish fiddle music, American fiddle music, South American early tango is all. If you play the Brandenburg concertos, if you play. But now, not the top. If you listen to the bottom, that's Freddie Green playing the guitar in Count Basie's band.
So there's no separation of music and...
Not really. I mean, a separation of feeling in a certain way of fast or slow, or the lilt of the beat, or the ability to play the 3 against the 2. But in actuality, there's so much common ground. Like we listened to Stravinsky, we heard even the unbelievable, even in rehearsal, of Petrushka's. That's 2-beat music.
Yeah. Well, if I can just get back to one thing in there are also ballads, slow ballads, and they're sort of noted down as being sexy ballads. We haven't got onto the sex yet.
They just got to be there.
And the rules and freedom of...
Well, we all
courtship?
know about those. We don't have to talk too much about that. That's been written about for centuries. It's just what it is. I mean.
Well, you did say swing is a matter of manners. And I thought that was a beautiful sentence, which sort of gives a cover over what you're doing with the orchestra. It's also with both orchestras and leading them together. It is a matter of manners in a way, isn't it? How do you see that?
And the term respect. This is the thing that so many people in the orchestra have said, you know, the trouble is we just feel so stiff in comparison.
And we're looking around saying, every time somebody plays, we're looking saying, damn, did you hear that? Like when the bass section played, everybody in our band was like, phew. When the trombonist played and the sound opened up, the bassoon, flutes, everybody can, even just now, some of our members, we were in the back listening to the rehearsal of Petrushka, the percussion. Ali is talking about, man, the guy who's playing lead snare, you hear him on the mallet percussions, or, you hear the time that they're playing on the basses or the flautist. I think Ali had made a recording with my man that's playing the flute, and he was saying, oh man, listen to the guy, the way he's playing. So it's a certain deep respect and collegiality that is genuine. And also these orchestra members are, unlike many experiences we have with orchestras, it's heavily, the level of engagement with the music is not as serious as we would hope it is, because it's like rules and union rules, and there's many things that have happened in the orchestral world, good or bad. It's not the time to talk about that, but this orchestra has rehearsed a lot over these last 3 or 4 days. They have really worked hard, and you just heard the type of performance they gave in rehearsal. And they have a concert tonight. So we're very respectful of their work ethic and their seriousness. Their percussion section was here early this morning, getting parts. They came late. Had their parts for 2 or 3 days. No complaining, okay, we got our parts late, we're gonna take them home and we're gonna practice them. And it feels much more like a jazz orchestra, because our way of playing is very much more informal and it's familiar, like Simon was saying today about a family dynamic when we were talking with Joe Temperley, our baritone saxophonist. So.
Well, what is extraordinary is to see and hear the integration. You see everyone, the level of engagement is 100%. Some of the orchestra members are passionate jazz lovers. What's going on behind the scenes? What is the feeling in the orchestra?
I think there's a lot of meeting. People are really people are really going to be talking, and they're.
Oh yeah, we're going to hang out the board of the first trumpet player.
Yeah.
we first trumpet players, we're colleagues anyway. We love each other like a certain way because we practice the same material, we listen to the same recordings, we have to play the same excerpts, we know the same trumpet players, Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Adam.
The fact that you don't speak any common language doesn't seem to make any difference at all.
No, we just shake hands and hug a lot. So, we're going to go out and we're going to have a great time. Sure.
That's a great moment to just ask this next question. 15 years ago, talking about this piece, but also with your passion for learning, what do you want kids to learn today? What do you think they need to learn?
I think they need to know that there's a great heritage. The human heritage is theirs, wherever they come from. And that the human heritage is our heritage. Like that all people have an ethnic heritage and they have a human heritage. But the human heritage is their heritage. Your ethnic heritage is the way you choose to express your humanity. Your humanity is the same across every culture. And that is what we are about propagating. That is what in terms of jazz music, and in terms of we're listening to Stravinsky's music 100 years after he wrote it, played here in Berlin with a phenomenal orchestra, not a Russian conductor. He's conducting the hell out of it. It's international music.
We've got 21 nationalities in the orchestra now. Almost anything you can imagine. It is the language. It is the language that brings people together.